when you do something in the game, like you do something good in it, you just feel so amazing towards it. It's like a moth flying into a light just over and over again. And it is just it's almost uncontrollable, especially I would say for teenagers whose brains are still developing. And that's
Mhm.
not anything against teenagers. I'm saying that with as much sympathy as I can because I was that teenager, moth flying into the lights over and over again while I was playing the game. And it's I think it's very, very difficult. So I think especially for younger people who haven't had as much life experience to understand what you can create your life to be.
Welcome to another episode of Mental Health in the Age of the Metaverse. I'm your host, Christian Ulstrup. My guest today is Nickolas Interrante. Nick is a Unity developer and undergraduate researcher at the University of Michigan. He was also once an aspiring professional esports athlete. For those who don't know, that means a professional competitive gamer. But ultimately, he decided to put the game controller down and head back to school to research mental illness and use technology to create better treatments. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Christian. Yeah, it's fun to be talking to you again.
You and I first connected, and it was just sort of a casual introduction, casual conversation because you were interested in virtual reality, clinical psychology, and we had a friend who's a researcher who put us in touch. And I felt like we had such an interesting conversation where you shared your own story of kind of returning to reality after being very involved in the competitive esports world. That I thought this would be a great thing to share with our audience. There are many parents who I think have kids who can really relate to sort of your own story. So I'm glad you could join me here. When we first spoke, you did mention that our little tagline, "Back to reality," through virtual reality, hit a chord, and this is something that's personal for you.
So yeah, I am really happy that you do have a platform where you can speak to parents and things about this because I feel like my story specifically did resonate so much with what you guys do at Virgil's. And that's why I even, reached out and tried to get in contact with you because I am like really behind what you guys are doing. And why that means so much to me is because I've seen both sides of the world. I've had, friends still in the video game world. It's not the video games are the worst thing in the entire world. I mean, tech, it is what it is. It's how you use it. And I think just knowing the quality of life that I had when I was trying to, pursue esports and all that stuff and living in kind of like the virtual world versus what my life is now when I'm actually engaging and, really connecting with people face to face and kind of living life more on my own terms. I think that is a message that is, pretty worth telling.
How old were you when you started playing video games?
I was probably like 4 or 5 years old. I was very, very young. I remember my dad had the original NES and me and him would play a bit. And it was so fun playing games with my dad and my sisters too, like Bubble Bobble. It was Heavy. I think it was like Heavy Barrel was the shooter game we played. It was so amazing. I remember that. And then the new age consoles came around. Yeah, it was probably like early 2000s or so, like the original Xbox and stuff. Whenever there was two joysticks, that's where my dad stopped playing. He's like, I can't do this. We played Halo for the first time. It was it was Halo 2. And it was the first 5 seconds. He just slammed up on both the joysticks. So his guy was like running up in a corner and then he just couldn't do it after that. It was just too much after that. But then since then, always growing up, all my friends, we always played video games together. And that lasted until about only a few years ago, like until I was, I would say about 23. And then now I'm going to be 28 in like a month. So it's a lot has changed for me in the past, I would say, decade.
Yeah, and so 5 years ago, it sounds like you made a pretty big decision to put down the game controller, literally and
Yeah.
maybe figuratively. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say a lot of that started actually when I was 21. Um, I was I was super overweight. Actually, I was almost 300 pounds. Right now I'm around like 200. So I ended up losing a lot of weight, and as I was kind of going like in a positive direction in my life, I I started reading books for like the first time ever. I was just kind of regaining my life again. I felt like I had a big bout of depression that I was dealing with, and I had to learn how to practice better behaviors for myself and take care of my health in a better way. And that is actually what led into, um, figuring out, okay, how does mental illness even work, and how can I even figure that out and help other people and make treatments for them. And around the time when I was 23, I was just, kind of playing video games, streaming, trying to be professional playing it. Um, I think I was pretty good at it, but just my mental health at the time was so bad. I wasn't taking care of my real life. And that's what led me to understand like going back to school and doing research for people with creating treatments for mental health people or people suffering from mental health issues would be probably the best thing I can do with my life. And it's made all the change to where I actually want to do that. There's nothing that I could see myself doing that would be more desirable for me. So it's helped me come back into reality because of how much meaning I put behind it.
It's really interesting, and because that's a stark change. So I mean, we sort of glossed over the background a little bit, but that's
Yeah.
it's sort of a far cry from starting off playing video games with your dad. Which my first response is like, that sounds pretty great. That sounds like a healthy
Yeah, yeah, it
activity.
was.
And then playing Halo with your friends, and there's something kind of connective and social about that. But then you decided to take things a step further. You mentioned streaming. There are
Hmm.
probably some parents in the audience who are maybe not as familiar with some of this stuff, so I want to make sure they have context.
Okay, yeah.
But well, I guess just to start, could you describe what is esports? What is professional gaming?
So recently, it wasn't as popular, maybe about 10 or 20 years ago, but I would say about 7 or 8 years ago, especially with the start of League of Legends, that's when a lot more of the infrastructure came up, and a lot just basically like the amount of money you could make being professional playing a video game um, rose substantially, like by winning a video game. So what esports is, it's basically like, ESPN, you have basketball, baseball, that stuff. It is the ESPN for video games. And the major one that kicked that off was, at least that made it more widespread, I believe, was League of Legends. And that's the one that I was into a lot. And now, since there's been such like a bigger community for that, how you have sports fans, there's also video game fans. And with all those video game fans, you can, in the digital age that we're at, you can have someone with streaming on a platform. It's only called Twitch. That's probably the most popular one, but you can stream from any, like YouTube, Facebook, anywhere. But with streaming, you have the professional players or just highly popular people, video game celebrities. And they stream themselves playing the game, and they can interact with their chat, and then people watch them and they can learn from them and a whole bunch of different stuff. And they make their money streaming by like through donations or subscribers. And yeah, so there has been, I would say, yeah, in the recent decade, there has been a path. Although it's very, very small amount of people, there's a path where you can become successful playing games for fetch.
Not too different than professional sports,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
And so you decided at some point that this was a path you wanted to go down. What about how old were you when you decided that?
I would say I wanted to be so the character's name was Lee Sin. That's like the character on the game, and I wanted to be the best Lee Sin player in the entire planet. I was so driven by that, and in a way, it was good because it taught me how to work hard for something. It taught me a little bit of work ethic, and I think that happened around um, about 20. It was about like 19 or 20. So I was originally going to school after straight out of high school to become a firefighter paramedic. And then things were not working well with that. And because I did not want to become a firefighter. And then I ended up dropping out of college originally and just working odd jobs, pizza delivery driver, a valet, random stuff like that. And then also streaming at the same time. And pretty much that's all I would do is just stream and play games with my friends. And that was like my whole life. And since I didn't really know anything else, and this is what I like, when you're playing games so much, like it feels really good, even if you are detached from reality. So it just felt like this is what I want to do with my life. It just felt like this is my passion. This is everything that I love. This is what I want. I want this. And it took a while where I did try it for a long time, but then I realized there's just something better in life for me.
You're working these odd jobs. You
Yeah.
decided to drop out of school, which is that's a pretty big decision. It
Yeah, it
sounds like
was
the game experience, was so compelling that what was it about it? There was the feeling. It was something that was different or more compelling than what you were getting from school, or what was that exactly?
100, yeah, 100%. I actually, so I've gone to school now and learned so much more about neuroscience. It's actually amazing. I'm so happy that I've actually had this knowledge that I do now, because I do understand, with these stimulating things, it's not terrible to do, every now and then or so. But I know it's when you get that, these things are made for like quick reward, and how it's made to kind of, come into your brain is that it just gives you so much stimulation. So when you are doing something that takes discipline, like doing your homework or other things like that, it makes them so much more dull, so much more dry, and it just makes them. It's like, why, if I can feel so good all the time, or have these crazy highs and lows by playing this game, and have so much like emotional, um, I guess, engagement here, why would I work so hard like learning something? Why would I do that? It just doesn't make any sense. And that's what I see with a lot of my friends that play a lot of video games. And um yeah, honestly, I haven't it's so very hard to see some some of my friends kind of like the different ways that their lives are going based off of how their involvements in, virtual world or in a video game, because it is so compelling, it is so engaging. And but what I know what that is now, it's just chemicals in your brain. It's just dopamine signaling and taking over your reward system. And I don't want to get like too technical with the brain stuff, but basically, if I could break that down, very this simply, you could kind of think of it as three different parts. So you have the front of your brain, which is going to be kind of your prefrontal cortex. And this is going to make all of your decisions, right? And doing hard things like reading books, you can kind of work out your brain and make that stronger, and you can make better decisions for yourself. And when you have a strong prefrontal cortex, that is going to allow you to regulate your emotions and regulate your stress better. It's going to make you much, much more healthier just as a person in general. And you're going to be much better socially. There's a whole plethora of good things, I think, with increasing, your prefrontal cortex capabilities. And in the center, the second part, that is going to be kind of where you are feeling a lot, kind of more your emotional side of things. It's going to be, all of your emotions that kind of rise up, and like, oh, I really want that piece of cake. Oh, I need to play this game right now. It's kind of those things overtake your prefrontal cortex in cases of addiction, and in video game addiction as well. That is, now it's in the DSM-5, which is a how psychologists and therapists, how they actually classify these certain things. It's finally catching up with behavioral addictions like gambling and things like that. And I think they're all tied one and the same. And then the third part, that would just be more your brainstem area. That's kind of where the dopamine is all coming from. So what ends up happening is you have all this flood of dopamine that is just giving you all of these very, very strong emotions, especially when you're a teenager. The front of your brain is still growing. So you're really susceptible to these things. So you got to be pretty careful with that. So if you have all these wild emotions that are shooting your behaviors in certain ways, you're not directing your life anymore. That is directing your life. And that's why it's so hard, because you don't know. I mean, you have to get a neuroscience degree to understand how to rewire your biology. Like that, it takes years and years to understand that at a deep level. So it's so difficult. But I know with that kind of understanding, that's what allows you to be. Yeah, I want to be, prefrontally intelligent. I want to be able to control those emotions and have control of my life again, because it's the same thing. And you see in the same cases of like mood disorders, depression, things like that, a lot of it is mood regulation. And so what I would like to do is to be able to provide a sort of philosophy and also treatments that could impact your brain in a way to where you can understand how that sort of shooting of dopamine, how those feelings are trying to overtake your behavior, and how you can understand to regulate that properly through different practices and different techniques, like meditate.
And so I understand a little bit better. It's almost like as you were describing that, I was thinking about, the game characters, the content, or, whatever's on behind the screen is almost reaching past your frontal lobe, bypassing your
Oh
executive
yeah,
decision making, and just, tapping into this really primal circuit. And that's a very powerful visual. I'd be curious if you could share, obviously you have both the sort of the science, um, but also personally, what that's like to experience something like it. Because I think if aliens landed here or something, they heard what you were describing. It's like,
yeah.
well, it's a screen. It's like the size of a postage stamp or whatever. It seems like it's kind of a crazy thing that it could be that powerful, right? It's not physically touching you, but it is activating those circuits. Like, what is actually going on there? And if you feel comfortable talking both from the scientific perspective, but also just
Hmm.
subjectively, like
Yeah.
what is that?
Well, I think that's the whole goal actually, is to kind of bridge those two worlds where you want to have a philosophy of living life that helps you regain control of your biology. So what it feels like, I guess the term would be, it's really affective. It's really, you can kind of think of it as like a flood of emotions. So I think it would be kind of the same thing as like taking a very like hardcore drug when you're playing video games. Um, I think you'd have to understand the community itself to be like,
Mm.
oh, like if someone's playing Fortnite, right, and they get 5 kills in a row or something, or they just win the game, they are so involved with that. They're so captivated by that. Their brain is just firing and going nuts. And what happens is their brain is rewiring to try to get that reward again. That's what they're always chasing. Their brain gets rewired. So again, I guess the middle part of your brain, which would be firing so much and try to take over the decision making part of your brain in order to try to do that behavior over and over and over again. So I guess what I would say, on a more like just base term, would be when you're getting when you're playing, you get those feelings sometimes. It's not always, sunshine and rainbows. Like you also feel really bad lows, but your brain sets up a higher like reward response. So when you do something in the game, like you do something good in it, you just feel so amazing towards it. It's like a moth flying into a light just over and over again. And it is just it's almost uncontrollable, especially I would say for teenagers whose brains are still developing. And that's
Mhm.
not anything against teenagers. I'm saying that with as much sympathy as I can because I was that teenager, moth flying into the lights over and over again while I was playing the game. And it's, I think it's very, very difficult. So I think, especially for younger people who haven't had as much life experience to understand. Um,
So yeah, we'll get into that in a second because I think
mhm.
that's sort of at the crux of maybe this issue. But I think I'm just imagining somebody listening right now who does play video games, and I played video games when I was younger. I enjoy playing video games with my coworkers. We'll put on the VR headset and play Demio and things like that
Yeah.
because we're remote. Um, it certainly it can be a good thing. You talked about playing with your dad.
Hmm.
And then too, I mean, games are ancient, right? People have been playing Go or, tic-tac-toe or,
Yeah.
stuff like that, or sports, right? For a very long time. But when it comes to, use the term drug to describe, what these game experiences can be like, what is the point at which it goes from something that is entertaining or even positive to something that's really problematic? Like, How does that happen?
Yeah. So, yeah, why I use drug is because, like I said before, it is getting classified now as a behavioral addiction. So just to like make that um, point, so you can see someone who does play video games, nonstop and avoids other parts of their lives, like socially or taking care of themselves. I would say that a person is, addicted to playing a video game. And you're right; it's not always all bad. If you can, I can't personally because of my past history with video games. I know I deleted my League of Legends account. I'm doing much better if they're just not in my life. Um, but not everyone has gotten super addicted to them, and some people can, have a different relationship with video games, and it is a good bonding experience with people. So, with all that being said, I would say um, there's a couple core things you need in your life that I think a lot of therapists try to when they do different therapies with people, different treatments with people, they try to get them with a community, with friends. They try to get them socially engaged. They try to get them. I know it's getting more and more in the science now, but no one like prescribes exercise. But just certain things to take care of yourself, like eating well, sleeping well, doing exercise, being able to take care of yourself, and having something that is important to you in life that is good for yourself and others around you. I think that's very meaningful, and I'm not just you know I'm saying that from experience, where that's what's made my life so much happier and actually just better. It's been much better to live this way. And I think when it becomes an addiction is you, when it takes away from your social relationships, the relationships with the people that you love, because it can do that. It can. You can choose to play a game over spending time with your family, and it's not just only the time aspect. It's the fact of what you value more as a person. And oftentimes, when the thing that you value the most is the game, everything else gets neglected, and I think there is room for games in your life, but I do not believe. I think it should be a fun hobby. I do not believe it should be trumping other like more important things. Like I said, those loving relationships in your life. I think when the games become more important than that, it is definitely a problem.
So it's a matter in part of kind of how you prioritize things
I
and
would,
where your focus is rooted. You mentioned the social stuff. I mean, you said you have friends who are still gaming. You were part of Discord communities. I know
yeah,
there is sort of a gamer community. There are these communities that coalesce around the games. I'm really curious if you could talk about what is sort of the difference between having relationships that are purely digital versus those maybe in sort of reality. Like, could you unpack some of the
yeah.
social stuff a little bit? Because I could see how somebody would say, oh, it's good.
No, I had friends that were even saying, "Oh, it's good." I don't know if anyone knows the game World of Warcraft. It's probably like maybe those one of the most popular games ever. And there is an auction house, which is like like a market where you can buy and
Mhm.
sell things. And I had fun on there. Like you can make a lot of like gold or whatever the in-game currency, but it doesn't translate into the real world exactly.
Hmm.
And also there is people who they run groups of people, they call them guilds. And it's, oh, I'm practicing like my business management skills by playing this game. And but in reality that it does not transfer over as well as you would say. So I think stating the case that you're learning real world viable skills is not as good is not as good of an argument as you as someone could try to muster up. Um, just because it's so different.
Hmm.
And going into why that's different is, I mean, right now we're talking on a video, so that's better. Like we actually get to see who we are, and we can see each other's body language and stuff, and that's great. And but nothing is going to replace like face to face contact, face to face interaction, and like little subtle cues. Not to be weird, but even like pheromones, things like that. Maybe that's a
Mhm.
part of it too. Just the way that we relate as humans is supposed to be near each other. That's definitely how we're supposed to be. I would say having an internet community on forums or Discord, wherever you're talking with people, is better than nothing. It's definitely better than nothing. Um, but the amount of social stimulation you get from purely online relationships is not enough to actually satisfy human need. I can't remember the study for it, but they did do a study on how much like social wellness people feel from purely online relationships. That I wish I could remember it. But what I would say is when you're in Discord, I don't know if anyone, for those of you that haven't used it, it's just kind of like just like a channel where you get to hang out with your friends and you have a little icon for your picture and you can hear each other talk. You can possibly use video, but no one ever does. You just on there playing the game with your friends and then you just hear them talking and you're talking with them. And the problem with that is, like I said, there's no face to face interaction, and you don't so you don't get that social reward. You don't get it the same way that you would if you went somewhere with them in real life. Like if you guys went biking somewhere, or if you played tic tac toe in real life, or you played Go, chess, anything like that in real life. That's different. It's much different compared to the way that people interact now. And I would say it's leaving everybody socially isolated in the most sad way possible, and I think that's terrible. So why I actually love virtual reality and virtual reality for treatments is it's because that's probably one of the best mediums to practice real world behaviors to get you back into the real world, where you're not simply in this social virtual internet age. You can actually engage with people in meaningful ways. Because I believe most humans, if not everybody, really truly craves that, really craves connection with one another. And in order to do that, you I just don't believe that an internet only relationship will be able to satisfy those certain things. I think probably the best sort of relationships are ones where you get to practice something that you love, like maybe, you know, karate or something. And then while you're doing that with a group, you'll get that same sort of reward, you know, but it won't be a drug. It'll be something, because it doesn't have that drug like effect. It doesn't just hit your brain very fast. Oh, I want more of this. I'm going to rewire everything to get more of this. It has, I guess it's more, um, it's more of like a slow reward where it's not just this kind of shock value that takes over your brain. It's this sort of, it's a sort of deeper feeling of reward that actually can last a long time without rewiring your entire brain, that could be good for you to be connected with people in the real world.
I mean, I think we're we're getting into some pretty deep philosophical territory, which is where I love to go. It's always fun to think about this stuff. I guess, you know, think kind of projecting out a little bit. I'm thinking about, you know, making the case that you're making to somebody in 10 to 15 years, where, you know, they've got the headsets, they've got like the haptic suits, maybe you've got, you know,
Yeah.
the olfactory, like the smells and everything. I know that that already exists. Like there's sort of
Hmm.
an enterprise version of that, but you're able to now simulate all of these things that really there's like an asymptote, right? It's really
Hmm.
approaching what you're able to get in reality, even though it's constructed or it has the appearance of it. What do you think? What do you think explains that difference? Like once it gets really that good, you know, what is the case for reality?
I think, I mean, I think that's amazing. I think that's what we're trying to do as humans. Just in general, with creating virtual worlds, we just want to be the masters of our own domains. We want to create the world, right? We want to create whatever we want, and we want to get as close to it as possible. We want to. It's kind of like being able to control your dreams, where you can just make anything you want and live it any way you want to. I would say it'll take us a very long time, actually, to mimic uh, what's what's created here already,
Mhm.
to fully stimulate your brain in a proper way that mimics reality. I think is pretty far from now. But look, let's say we got to that point, right? There wouldn't be any where there's no distinguishing difference between the synthetic world that you created, you're getting stimulated in the same way, versus a world that's not. Um, and I guess hmm, it kind of depends at that point. It's like a red pill, blue pill thing, and I think that most people would not want to knowingly live in a false reality, because if you know that, it ruins I think it would ruin all the fun. But if you're able, I think at the same time, we should push to mimic reality as much as you can, because one, that's very fun. And two, you get to practice different things. You can become a pilot. You can become, whatever it is that you want to do. You can train in any certain way. You can practice anything you want to be. You can test out a different world to see if that's something you'd want to do, and you can live that in real life. So I think that's what people already try to do. That's why we have such a propensity to create these realities in the first place, is because we try to plan for the future so heavily all the time. You try to build an imagery or an imagistic view of the future in your head already, where this is a desirable future for me. This is what I want. This is how I want to look like. These are my desires in this way. So if you're able to really create that and then test it out and live in it, then I think it's just people taking what their brain already does in a visual sense and making it as real as possible. But I still think at the end of the day, it's synthetic, it's created. It doesn't have that essence of the paprika of life. So it's never going to hit that maximal point unless you, do some sort of Neo Matrix thing where Morpheus doesn't talk to him and he doesn't know that he's in the Matrix, and he doesn't, follow the white rabbit or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, my intuition is, one, it's not possible. I don't think that you actually can create a synthetic reality that's indistinguishable. And then two, I think even if you could, that would be a bad thing to choose to have that become like your primary residence, as opposed to being rooted in reality. I think the difficult thing to explain to somebody, let's say, who's struggling with video games or Twitter, I don't know. There are people like the metaverse has been around, right? We're already kind of there in some ways. Is to convince somebody that it's worth investing the time and attention in things that are not as immediately rewarding. That's something that you talked about earlier, right? Like one of the reasons why video games can be so compelling is you get the circuit, the dopamine circuit is stimulated right now with relatively low effort versus going to school for years, diving into research, that kind of stuff. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that sort of, mindset shift that you had from going from the short-term rewards to taking the longer-term payoff stuff more seriously.
Yeah. No, I'll be happy to talk about that. So going back to the video games as like a drug. So why I even say that is because something like cocaine, when it hits your brain, it's like the faster the drug can get to your brain, the more you feel it. And that's kind of the difference with certain behaviors rather than others. If you if you paint something, it can be this, or if you play an instrument, it can be this wonderful thing where you fully flesh out a canvas or fully flesh out a song, and you could be feeling good that entire time. Or you can practice for a very long time and get that reward where you can finally play the song in a correct way. But with a video game, it's just kind of it's kind of that cheap, quick rush that ends up taking over your brain, where other harder things in life that are more rewarding, that will make you a better person in the long run, those become not desirable. It's more of a comparative thing, if I'm being honest with you. It's because you have that quick drug. So I guess one quick, not to go too off the rails, but very quickly, one quick study was with rats and cocaine. So they had this, if rats are alone, they'll choose the cocaine because they're lonely and they're not having a good life. The rats love to be social too. So if they are alone, they'll take the cocaine. But if they can choose to interact with other people and they have this little rat amusement park where they can hang out with their friends, they'll choose that every time. So it's the fact that you can compare between the two, and it's in what your current environment is. So what my current environment was at that time, I was alone. I was in my father's basement. Like I said, I was like 300 pounds. I think maybe my stream videos there. I think they're still on the internet, where you could see it. And I was honestly just incredibly depressed in my life. It was definitely the lowest point of my life. Where I got to a point, I was about 21, and I got to a breaking point personally where I couldn't do it. I was like, this is not to sound, not to sound too much here, but or not to bring up too much here, but it was like a life or death thing for me, if I'm being honest. It was I'm either going to I guess I'm extreme. I'm either going to change everything and have whatever I want in this life, or I'm going to die now. And I had people in my life that loved me, so I couldn't do it. And and I chose. This is it. Like this is everything. I'm gonna change everything here. I wasn't so gung ho about it. Like, oh, I'm just gonna change everything. Everything's gonna work out. No, it was so hard. It was so hard every day. I didn't know if it was going to work out. I didn't know. All I knew is that I had to change my behaviors. And that's where I started working out. I started doing things differently. And eventually over the years, I saw a great change where I don't even know how I ended up where I'm at now, where I was doing like brain surgery with rodents or different things like that. Knowing what I know now about the brain, it's been such, like, sometimes it's unbelievable. Like I cried when I got into this university because none of this was planned. And what I would say, I guess, to parents specifically, I think I was a very, very stubborn kid. But as people know, like, kids with a lot of will and a lot of stubbornness, it can be good, because once they turn that into something that they want and something that's better for themselves in the world, they can be so strong and they can do so much good in the world, really. So trying to guide your child in that direction, I think, is probably the best thing you can do. And I know during that time, my mother and father separated. It was just pretty hard. So it was hard for me to kind of get that guidance during that time in my life. But I still have a very good relationship with everyone in my family now, even more close than ever. Partly because of, how I've changed and how I've learned to understand time and caring for others that I love. But I think, like, when I spoke with my dad about, how difficult it was maybe for me in my teen years, like, I'm sorry, Dad, like, how did you deal with that? What were you thinking? Like, how could you, get me out of that? And he would ground me. He would shut off the internet. It really wouldn't matter. I was so dead set on this. I was so dead set on it. And yeah, I mean, as I said before, I dropped out of college, and, you know, I had a conversation like that. I think my sisters helped me at that time. I have two sisters, and one of them, Michelle, she was like, okay, if you love this stuff, and, you got to try it. And, I was like crying with my dad, and I was telling him, like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I need to do. And my dad just showed me a lot of love in that moment, where his son just dropped out of college and he wants to play video games for a living. He just showed me a lot of love in that moment. And he just had faith in me. And he's like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And I did that for a while. And then my other sister, Nicole, so I guess this is a whole family venture, but my other sister, Nicole, um, she's kind of more hard-nosed in a way. And she said, well, if you're not the professional by 24 or whatever, you need to do something with your life. And I was 23, so I stopped a little early, but I knew it wasn't going to happen, or at least I found something better to do in my life. So what I really recommend, just in general, because I think it's so incredibly hard. That's why I'm trying to make treatments for this. It's so hard to take someone who is either addicted or someone who's super, super either bipolar, depressed, or in a very, very tough situation in their life right now, to drag them out of that into a better life, into a truly, truly better life that's where they're happier and they make everyone else happier around them. It's so incredibly difficult, where you need this strong, strong willpower, where I think virtual treatments can help you practice those behaviors in a video game setting. It doesn't have to be just people who play video games, but just being able to practice those behaviors that help you, those little soft skills that help you take care of yourself, being able to practice them in a fun way to kind of bridge that gap to where you're then feeling better, which it becomes easier. It becomes easier later when you start to become healthier. But when you're first, kind of down in the depths, where that reward part of your brain is just completely taking over everything, and you feel terrible just to like get up and do anything with your day, having a sort of treatment that kind of works as a bridge to kind of get you into a better life. I think that's absolutely incredible. And I guess as parents with their children, I think in the first place, try to limit to where the addiction stuff doesn't even happen, and try to have strong values, like family values and a lot of love. I think a lot of love is probably the most important thing. Definitely. And then just keep engaging with your kids, keep them in the real world. It's so important to keep that. And I would say one of the best ways to do that is I started to learn, I started, I guess, to have like more, I mean, I wasn't like super unconfident or anything, but I started to believe in myself more, where I can really do some really awesome stuff in this world. I can really do that. Like, I think I'm fortunate enough that I was born, to have some good strengths. And if I figure that out and use those strengths to the best of my ability, I can do so many amazing things in this world. I can have whatever it is that I want. And I truly started, to believe that and feel better, and then make those changes in my life. So I think if a parent talking with their child who's kind of dealing with that sort of issue, if you can just love them and believe in them and tell them like, yeah, you can, you can do these other things in your life that can help yourself and a lot of other people. You can inspire them in that way. I think they can find something more important than playing the game, and they wouldn't want to anymore, because I didn't want to anymore, why would I started feeling terrible while playing games, because it would drag me away from more meaningful things in my life that I knew was just better, like overall.
It's not deeply or durably satisfying, and that I would imagine that kind of compounds over time. You start feeling this lack, something sort of not right. There are a few things that are kind of interesting about what you just said. One was one of the things that caused you to go so deep into the virtual world and develop this sort of unhealthy relationship was also, that strong sense of willpower and determination and everything, the stubbornness, was kind of what allowed you to come out of it, and is sort of a superpower, right? So, I think that's a really kind of interesting point.
Yeah, I think it's a curse, but also it's the best thing I got. So
Right.
I think in the first quarter of my life, because it's not like all fun and games and stuff. I think I really, really, even at the time, I was pretty aware of it. I'm like, this is a curse. This is a curse that I have right now. Where my mind couldn't stop thinking about stuff. It was definitely just such a bad place to be, where I thought it was a curse, but there is so much power behind that. So, the last, the latter 3/4 of my life, I'm sure, it'll make up for that by allowing me to do what it is I want to in this life.
I think it's great. Yeah. It's almost like I think about, the like the X-Men or whatever, right? Like the first, it's like they're causing problems, and, but that same thing that was causing issues, if you direct it in the right way, even using digital tools. I mean, so you're doing research, you're doing serious work, you're a Unity developer. So you're still very much involved in the digital world and digital spaces. So there's still that, you got a foot in reality and a foot in the virtual world. Sounds like you're more focused on reality. But it's like you're using the same traits with a slightly different focus towards something that is more durable, more desirable, more, you use the term meaningful. And that was something I wanted to dig into was, when we last spoke, meaning, purpose, that was something that came up over and over again, as far as making the case for reality. And I'm thinking just now, if you could talk to young Nick, right, and try to make the case for reality versus the other path, what is the role of meaning in that?
Well, if I could talk to my young self, like probably just before, because I was always heavily into video games, so I guess it would be just before, I started really getting into them, and I didn't know where I was going in my life, and when I was dropping out of college and stuff like that, I would say, "Hey, buddy, you can have anything you want in this life. You you can become a freaking world beater. You can start any company. You can do anything you want. Like this is the ultimate playground. This is real life, and what you'll feel here is so much better than anything you can get from those games. It's so much more rewarding. Learning who you are as a person and disciplining yourself and um, becoming someone that other people can rely on. It's the way to act. And I would just kind of teach myself all those lessons that took me years to learn in a very hard way. And I guess where um, the meaning comes from seeing my grandfather cry. That's one moment that I really remember. I used to have pretty long hair, like super, super long. And when I got into this university here, I was going to different schools University of Michigan, because community college is cheaper. Then I transferred. And when I transferred, I got like my first, research position. That's when I cut my hair and, kind of became, more serious. And my grandfather cried at that. And that's how, like, those types of emotions are just so much better. I think it's just so much more attached to, like who I truly am, and feeling that kind of love in my heart. That's much more meaningful than being the best Lee Sin player in the world. It doesn't even compare. It just doesn't even make any sense. Maybe I could have made a lot of money playing video games. That could have been pretty cool. But even then, um, what I liked about streaming, so again, the streaming would be me playing games and talking to people, is that I could talk to other people who are playing games and then make them happy, and then
Yeah.
try to help them out. That's, I loved doing that. That's why I loved being a streamer and entertaining people. And now I'm kind of just doing that full time. I'm not trying to pursue like the meaningless stuff. I'm trying to fill my life is full of purpose, where it's very hard. Obviously, everyone messes up, where you watch some stupid videos or waste some time here, or maybe say the wrong words to somebody at a time. You're human. You try to live the best you can, but throwing as much meaning as I can into my life as possible um has been the most fulfilling um thing that I've learned how to do. And I guess I guess the most important thing would be kind of connections with other people, and how I could improve my life and other people's lives around me. I know, like, even my family says I got to worry about myself a lot, or at least just like worry about myself first. But I find the most meaningful things would be like if I'm able to create these treatments here that actually changes somebody's life. Like, I know my mother suffered a lot from depression, and it affected, my childhood and my sisters and even my father. And if I'm able to, um, since I had that kind of experience, that's what I know is meaningful to me. Maybe other people have dealt with other things in their life, and they can find, meaning is an individual thing. Meaning is something that you make. Like, my friend had a bad experience with a teacher, and then he wants to become a teacher, and it's whatever you find at the core of your being. It's really figuring out that, whatever pain you have, or whatever who you are as a person, and bringing that out as much as you can into the world. It's the most fulfilling thing. And like I said, if I'm able to make these treatments and change a mother's life or change a son's life that ends up changing their family dynamic, where they get to love each other more and feel closer, I what I can't possibly, with all of my intelligence and rationale, all of any way that I could think about it, there's nothing more important to me than doing that in my life, for me personally. So that's what I try to fully live. That's what I try to every day wake up and try to fully do with every ounce of time I have on this earth. And that's, if that kind of, hopefully that kind of sums up as much,
Mhm.
not that like I'm a super, super meaning junkie or anything like that. Like I said, people fail, but that's, that's when I find the ability to work through hard things, you know? So
It makes a ton of sense. I
yeah.
think it's very compelling. It's, if you are able to figure out what that thing is that is, like you said, deeply personal, and you can get focused on it, life becomes more exciting than any video game. Right? Video
100%.
games are just ultimately an imitation of that sort of more fulfilling set of experiences that you can have. Now, that being said, that begs the question of, what is that thing for me, right? And I think that's something a lot of people, but especially young people, I've kind of heard from parents and therapists and everybody else we work with, that question of, what does the future look like? What am I actually marching toward is really up in the air for a lot of
Yeah.
folks. Now, if you were chatting with a young person who was kind of grappling with that, maybe they get a sense that they're not sort of on the best path, but they just don't know, what is my purpose? What should I be doing? What's that very first step that they can take to start thinking about it?
I would say the very first step would be to take care of your health, and that'll get you thinking better, and you'll have more time. Things like meditating, thinking clear, getting control of your emotions will help you think more clearly to make better decisions, definitely. And once you're, starting to make those better decisions, just try anything. Like that's why life is so cool, because you can mess up, you can go do this thing and maybe it doesn't work out, or my path wasn't just oh, I know I'm going to do virtual reality treatments, and then I just like am doing it now. It was 7, 8 years ago. I went from wanting to play video games, that was my path, and I just wanted to like try that out, and then that didn't work out, and I went through this whole change, and I didn't know what I was doing at all. I it's not like I know what I'm doing now. I have a very good idea, and I'm just going to try my utmost to make that happen. And when I first went back to school, I was speaking a lot with my mother, and in my head, I was like, I just truly asked myself without any judgment, what is it? What is it that and I finally, what the true answer was that I found for myself was I just want to help people with mental illness. And then I figure out, and I just asked myself, okay, the rational stuff was how do I do that? How do I do that? And then it was becoming a researcher. And then those things started to fall in place in a way. And even that route is like, oh, I'm going to become a researcher by going here and doing this thing. Even that doesn't kind of work out perfectly. But no matter what, you always just keep talking to new people. You always just keep trying new things. And then, you'll zigzag, and there'll be ups and downs and things like that. You'll be zigzagging up, like upwards, in an upwards direction, no matter what. So even if you don't know what you're doing, if you just start aiming at something and start going towards something, you'll become better at doing that. And you'll become better at learning who you are as a person. That's why it's such an amazing thing to be actually engaged in life. Especially if you don't know anything about yourself and you're younger and you're like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, anything like that. I didn't know what I wanted to do either, but I would say doing anything is better than nothing. And then work to understand yourself and just keep trying, and it will come. As long as you really, wish to try to figure that out, that it will fall into place, even though sometimes it seems like it isn't. I would say keep trying, and then clarity will definitely come.
It's resonating with me as an entrepreneur. Keeping your eye on the ball, high highs, low lows. Certainly, I think that's very correct. And what you were saying too about getting the foundation right, so taking care of your health, thinking clearly, having those kind of things, meditating, maybe taking care of nutrition, sleep.
There's so much on biohacking now on YouTube that blew up a lot. So try not to spend all your time researching and try to do, a lot of time just implementing and practicing, and whatever works for you personally. You don't have to like know everything about research or, oh, this is the exact proper way to meditate. Just do whatever is good for you in those regards, whatever you can do at the moment.
Yeah. And then you just, like you said, keep going, and the answer starts to emerge. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, you mentioned a few times some of these treatments that you're interested in. You're operating at sort of the intersection of virtual reality, say spatial computing, and clinical interventions when it comes to mental health. You and I talked a little bit about some kind of interesting ideas, and I know you're looking to connect with other researchers, entrepreneurs. You share a little bit about some of the ideas that you
Yeah,
have and kind of what's piquing your interest right now.
yeah, definitely. So, what I find right now is most VR studies, a lot of them are pretty preliminary. And what I want to help psychiatrists and psychologists do is to bring virtual treatments more on the forefront. So, right now, typical treatments for depression or things like that, or some sort of cognitive behavioral therapy mixed in with like an antidepressant. And what I believe, I mean, obviously, read the full literature. There's different things with different genes where medication is pretty good for some people. Um, I believe a lot of the time the medication isn't that great long term. And I think what gets people more so out of depression is changing their behaviors and finding them more so meaningful life that actually, where you can rehack your biology and have it work for you. Have you feel rewarded to live in a better way. And what I want to do is, and that's kind of what cognitive behavioral therapy is about, really. It's kind of breaking down the structure of your mind and learning how to think in a way that's more conducive to living in a better way. And I think something like cognitive behavioral therapy, bringing that into a virtual setting where you get to practice those behaviors. So just very quickly, one of the things is like reappraisal, right? It's so someone who is super doubting themselves, saying like, "Oh, I'll never be able to do this. They have a lot of negative self-talk. Like, I hate myself. I'm not good enough to do this." And obviously, if that's your mindset, you're not even going to try. You're not even going to see, working hard to get something as a desirable thing to do in the first place. So what reappraisal is possibly viewing that future in a different way or viewing yourself in a different way. You're reappraising the situation. So something you can do in virtual reality is actually having them practice those sort of reappraisal techniques by giving them a different visual of the behavior that they're doing, or even having them practice that in a more engaging way. Or if a lot of the work now is done kind of with, if people are dealing with certain trauma or things like that, kind of getting them exposed to those
Mhm.
certain cues that trigger them. But also, I think the most engaging thing would be teaching people those kind of skills to take care of themselves, and teaching people in a virtual world guided by clinicians, teaching them those cognitive behavioral skills through a virtual setting where they actually get to physically practice them.
Mhm.
So when they're at home, like they can physically engage with the virtual world. You can set up worlds where they have to, kind of work to pursue a goal in a certain way. And if they're able to practice that behavior, and it's really fun because it's in a, virtual reality is kind of interesting, right?
Mhm.
And you get to practice that over and over again. Then when you're out into the real world, your brain is like, okay, well, I've done this before, and then you can help yourself get out of depression in that way. That's kind of bridging the gap, I believe.
Makes sense. It's yeah, and I think the key point there, right, is you're engaging in behaviors that are engineered to help you make progress towards your goals in reality, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to just keep you stuck in the
Yeah.
metaverse. Yeah, this is very exciting times. I mean, for us, we started the company 18 months ago, and just in that time, huge amount of progress, lots of new research, studies being published all the time. I know there are like new labs and stuff across the country that are cropping up, and so I think definitely if you're scrambling right now trying to figure out how to get in touch with Nick to add him to your research
Yeah.
team to
Please.
your lab, I'm going to include a URL to your LinkedIn profile in the notes,
Okay.
so people can get in touch. But just to recap quickly, you are a Unity developer. You're also undergraduate researcher, and you're looking to connect
Um,
with other researchers, sort of in the clinical psychology, virtual reality space. Is that right?
yes. I did graduate with just recently, about 2 months ago. I graduated with a bachelor's in biopsychology, cognition, and neuroscience. With heavily into the neuroscience stuffs to really understand the physiology behind mental illness. Because I think with my past experience and past research, I kind of learned a lot about the mind, and I really wanted to see what kind of makes the brain stuff work, and to try to learn how to engage, I guess, different brain activation in virtual reality is what I'm very focused on now.
Excellent. Well, I think given the willpower that we've talked about, as well as your personal story and sense of purpose and everything else, I'm really excited to see what you have ahead of you. There's clearly a lot of good work to be done with technology, and I'm really glad that we're able to connect and have this conversation. So
yeah, definitely. No, that's why I was so happy to even meet you in the first place, because I love what you guys are doing, and just I 100% wish you guys the best too, because I think that's what the world needs right now, really bad. Is people with more meaning in their lives are just learning how to not be kind of sucked into these things in such a terrible way. And the fact that you guys are doing that, I think it's super amazing, and I wish you guys all the success. Really.
thank you. Well, let's keep making that case for reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, Nick, thank you so much.
Thank you.